They forced the rejected Omega into the arena. Her wolf rose and the Alpha King chose her. The kingdom of Lyrathia was a land of shadows and mist, where dark forests whispered secrets and mountains hid forgotten magic. Wolves roamed freely, their howls echoing over valleys carrying tales of ancient power. The people of the kingdom revered these wolves, but they also feared them, for some were not just beasts. They were spirits, bound to the hearts of humans, gifted or cursed by forces older than the kings themselves. Seraphine walked slowly along the cold cobblestones of her clan's village, her head low, her cloak wrapped tightly around her shoulders. She was an Omega, the weakest by her people's laws, the one meant to follow and obey. And yet, she had always felt different. Her heart carried a fire, quiet but insistent, a voice her wolf whispered that she could not yet understand. But the clan did not see this. Today she had been called to the Great Circle, to stand before the elders, to be judged. The square was crowded. Villagers, warriors, and hunters had gathered, their eyes sharp and cruel. Seraphine felt their stares like icy fingers pressing into her back. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, a faint vibration, restless and uneasy. She tried to calm it, but it pulsed with her shame, reminding her of every failure, every stumble, every whisper that she was not enough. High above the square, the elders watched from their stone balcony, their robes black and heavy with gold embroidery. Elder Varin, the chief, stepped forward. His voice boomed over the crowd. Seraphine of the Moon Shadow clan, he said, his tone flat, devoid of warmth. You were born weak. You have faltered in every test of skill, of strength, of obedience. You have brought shame to your pack. Today you will face your punishment, the crowd murmured, some jeering, others whispering as if afraid to speak too loudly. Seraphine's hands shook, her wolf stirring like a caged fire. Sensing the tension in the air, she tried to retreat, but the guards had already formed a circle around her, guiding her toward the gates of the arena. The arena was vast, a stone circle carved into the cliffs at the edge of the forest. Its walls were tall and lined with spikes, and from the highest points, flags fluttered in the wind, black, with silver sigils. The arena was where those deemed unworthy or dangerous came to prove themselves, or perish. Seraphine's heart thumped violently as she stepped onto the cold stone. Around her, other challengers were being led in. Warriors with scars across their faces, hunters with knives at their belts, and creatures, half wolf, half human, whose eyes glimmered in the dim sunlight. They were stronger, faster, braver, and she felt nothing but fear. A horn blared. The crowd erupted into cheers and jeers, the sound rolling over the arena like thunder. Seraphine felt her knees weaken, but then a faint warmth stirred in her chest, a whisper from the wolf inside her. Rise, do not hide. They fear what they cannot see. The gates of the arena opened, and a lion-like roar echoed from the shadows. A massive beast stepped forward, its eyes glowing amber, its fur bristling with dark magic. Seraphine froze. Her wolf growled, a deep, trembling sound that vibrated through her bones. "You will face it," Elder Varin called, his voice carrying over the roar. "Only those who survive may leave. Remember, Omega, strength is earned, or it is taken from you." The beast lunged. Seraphine stumbled backward, tripping over her cloak, and fell to the ground. Panic surged, but then something remarkable happened. Her wolf, long silent, obedient, fearful, rose inside her. Its power coiled like a spring, a heat that burned her fear away. Her hands clenched into fists, and her claws, human and wolf, intertwined, scratched the stone. The beast froze, sensing her awakening. Seraphine rose slowly, every step trembling yet deliberate. Her eyes glowed faintly amber, a reflection of her wolf's power. The crowd gasped. Even the strongest warriors paused, surprised by this sudden shift. The wolf inside her hummed with clarity, no longer just a whisper. "You are not weak. You are more than they see." "Show them!" The beast lunged again, and this time Seraphine met it head-on. Her body moved as if guided by instincts older than herself, her fists and claws striking with precision. She dodged and spun, feeling a strange exhilaration, a merging of human thought and wolf instinct. The crowd roared at the spectacle, some in fear, some in awe. From the stands, a pair of eyes observed her closely. They belonged to Darius, the Alpha King of Lyrathia. He was tall, his presence commanding, his gaze sharp as a blade. He did not shout, did not cheer. He watched. Something in him stirred as he saw the spark of power within the Omega. He had seen many fight, many die, but something about her intrigued him. She was raw, untamed, and yet there was a fire in her heart that mirrored his own. The beast hesitated again, sensing the Alpha's gaze, sensing the wolf that had finally awakened. Seraphine's heart pounded. The fight was not yet over, but she felt a strange clarity, a strange courage. She realized that this was not just a test of survival, it was a test of who she was meant to become. And then it happened. Her wolf fully surged, glowing beneath her skin, merging with her soul in a brilliant pulse of light and energy. The beast froze mid-step, its eyes wide. Seraphine's form shifted slightly, her movements faster, sharper, yet elegant, almost like a dance. In a single leap, she struck the beast down, not with hate, but with mastery. It collapsed, subdued but alive, a testament to her awakening strength. The crowd erupted, their cheers mingled with disbelief. Seraphine stood over the beast, chest heaving, eyes glowing amber. She was trembling, yes, but the fear that had ruled her moments before had been replaced by power. She had faced death and humiliation and had risen above it. And then came the voice, clear, calm, yet with an authority that made the air itself shiver. Enough! Darius stepped into the arena, his cloak flowing behind him, his presence filling every corner. He looked at Seraphine not as a spectator, not as a king judging a subject, but as one who had recognized something rare and dangerous within her. You, he said, his voice low, deliberate. Step forward. Seraphine's wolf growled softly. She did not know whether it was in fear or approval. She stepped forward, her body tense, every nerve alert. You survived, Darius said, his eyes studying her. Not because of luck, but because of strength that has lain dormant. Tell me, Omega, do you know the power you possess? Seraphine swallowed, unsure. I think so, she whispered. Darius smiled faintly, a shadow of amusement and intrigue. Good. We will see soon enough. Tonight you will come to the citadel. There are matters I wish to discuss with you. The crowd cheered, some in excitement, some in fear, but Seraphine felt none of it. Her heart raced not from the crowd, but from the man who stood before her. Her wolf stirred, sensing a force like no other, one that matched its own intensity and dominance. Fear, curiosity, and something else, something more dangerous, burned inside her chest. That night she lay in her small cell at the arena, her wolf purring and trembling within her. It had tasted freedom, tasted power, and it would not be silent again. Seraphine closed her eyes, feeling the pulse of strength she had never known, a fire she could not ignore. And then came the dream. She saw Darius, chained and surrounded by shadows, the kingdom burning around him. Wolves howled in the distance, some familiar, some monstrous. And she was there, her wolf fully risen, eyes glowing, strength radiating like the sun. She ran to him, but the shadows pulled her back, threatening to snuff out the fire within her. She awoke with a start, the cold stone beneath her hands grounding her. Her wolf growled softly, a reminder that the vision was not just a dream. It was a warning, a calling, and she understood deep in her bones that her journey had only just begun. The arena gates had closed for the night, but tomorrow she would step into a world of danger, intrigue and power she had only glimpsed. Her wolf would not rest. She would not rest. And somewhere in the distance the Alpha King's eyes lingered on her even as she slept. The game had begun. The night had settled over Lyrathia like a velvet cloak, and the arena, now quiet, seemed empty but alive with the echoes of the day's events. Seraphine could still feel the pulse of the crowd, the heat of her wolf's awakening, and the lingering adrenaline from her victory. Yet sleep did not come easily. Her wolf stirred, restless, whispering in ways she barely understood. They fear what you are. They fear what you can become. By dawn, she was escorted from her cell. Soldiers led her through winding corridors of the citadel, past tapestries depicting kings and queens long gone, and into the great hall where Darius awaited. He stood tall, his presence dominating the room without effort, yet he did not speak immediately. He watched her, as though measuring every heartbeat, every flicker of fear, every tremor of strength. "You are awake," he said finally, his voice calm but commanding. "Good. I hoped you would not waste the gift you were given yesterday." Seraphine's wolf bristled at his words, sensing not malice but authority. Her human mind wanted to resist, wanted to shrink away, but her wolf stirred with curiosity and recognition. "He sees me." The thought made her chest tighten. You mean my fight in the arena?" she asked, unsure if she could even meet his gaze. "Yes," he said, taking a slow step toward her. "Most challengers die or they falter. But you rose. You are more than your rank, more than your fears. That is rare." Athena swallowed, feeling a strange mix of pride and terror. Rare? Dangerous, maybe, but not worthy of a king's notice. She kept her head bowed. Darius tilted his head, as though reading her thoughts. "Do you know what this means?" he asked softly. Yet his words carried the weight of mountains. "The kingdom has rules. The Omega is not meant to rise above the pack, not without guidance. But I see potential in you that cannot be ignored. You will not remain in the arena. Not if you accept my offer." Seraphine's heart leapt, confusion and fear warring within her. "Your offer," she whispered. "You will come to the citadel as my guest. You will train, learn to master your wolf in your own power. You will be protected, and perhaps you will serve a purpose greater than survival." Her wolf growled softly, sensing both danger and opportunity. Seraphine hesitated. The arena had taught her one thing. Survival depended on trust, and trust was dangerous. And yet, the idea of being seen, being recognized for what she truly was, a fire sparked within her chest. "I do not know if I can," she said finally. "You can," Darius replied, his eyes piercing. "I will not force you, but the choice is yours, and time is short. There are those in my court who will not welcome you. Those who fear change. Those who fear power, like yours." For a long moment, Seraphine said nothing. Her wolf pulsed beneath her skin, restless, urging her to leap, to take the chance, to rise beyond fear. Finally she nodded. I will go." Darius inclined his head, a shadow of a smile on his lips. "Good. Then let us begin." The days that followed were a storm of training, observation, and subtle challenges. The citadel was a labyrinth of stone corridors and high towers, where whispers of magic and history lingered in every corner. Seraphine learned that the Alpha King was as much a scholar as a warrior, his mind sharp and commanding. He taught her to sense the world in ways she had never imagined, the pulse of the land, the faint traces of magic in the air, and most importantly, the rhythm of her wolf. Her wolf responded, growing stronger yet still wary of full control. There were moments when it surged with power, and she was terrified of losing herself. And there were moments when it whispered gentle and insistent, urging her to trust, to embrace, to rise. Darius observed silently during these lessons, guiding with subtle authority. He never raised his hand, never forced her, yet every movement, every instruction, carried a weight she could not ignore. Seraphine found herself drawn to him, not by desire, but by recognition. Her wolf sensed a matching strength in him, dominance and control that mirrored its own. One evening, after a particularly grueling session in the courtyard, Seraphine sat on the stone steps, her body aching, her wolf humming softly beneath her skin. Darius approached, his steps quiet but deliberate. "You are improving," he said, his tone even but proud. "Faster, sharper, more confident. And yet," he paused, studying her, "you still hesitate. You fear your own power." "I am afraid of losing control," she admitted, her voice small. "Of hurting someone. Or myself." Darius knelt beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Power is not a curse," he said softly. "It is a responsibility. You will learn balance, and you are not alone." Her wolf growled low in her chest, a warning, a question, a curiosity. "Not alone. What does that mean?" Seraphine looked up at him, and for the first time she saw not just the king, but a being as complex and powerful as her wolf itself. Days turned into nights, and with each passing day, Seraphine's confidence grew. She learned to fight not just with strength, but with cunning. She learned to listen to her wolf, to merge instinct with thought, and all the while Darius watched, guiding, challenging, testing. Yet not all eyes in the citadel were kind. Whispers followed her through the halls, eyes followed her in shadowed corridors. Some envied her rise, some feared the power that now pulsed within her. Seraphine felt the weight of attention, and her wolf sensed the danger. Restless and fierce. One night she wandered the citadel gardens alone, the moon casting silver light over fountains and marble statues. She felt a presence behind her before she saw him. "You should not walk alone," Darius said softly, his voice blending with the night wind. "I wanted to think," she replied. "To understand." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "Understanding comes with courage," he said, "and with choices. You have already chosen to rise. But rising is not easy. It attracts attention and enemies." Seraphine shivered, not from cold, but from the weight of his words.
I do not know if I can face what comes next," she admitted.
"You can," he said firmly, "because your wolf has chosen you. And because I have chosen you." Her heart stuttered. The wolf inside her purred, a sound of approval and wonder. Chosen by him? She had never felt seen like this, not by her clan, not by anyone, and yet fear twisted with excitement. What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I mean," Darius said, taking a slow step closer, "that your power will not be wasted. I will protect it, guide it, and perhaps you will protect what I value most." Her wolf bristled, sensing the gravity of his words. She did not know if she was ready to trust this king, this alpha, or even herself. And yet there was something undeniable in the connection between them, a pull she could not resist. Before she could respond, a horn sounded from the outer gates of the citadel. Darius straightened, his expression hardening. "Trouble," he muttered. "It seems not all are pleased by your rise, Omega. You must learn that survival is not just in the arena." Seraphine felt her wolf surge, instincts sharpening. "Enemies," she whispered. "Yes," Darius said, his eyes dark. "And they are closer than you think. Tonight you will not be alone. But tomorrow the challenges will be greater, and the choice to trust your power, and me, will be yours alone." The moonlight shimmered over the gardens as he walked away, leaving Seraphine to the quiet hum of her wolf and the rustle of the night wind. She knelt by a fountain, staring into the silver water, her reflection mingling with the glow of her amber eyes. She was no longer the rejected Omega of her clan. Her wolf had risen. She had survived the arena, and now she had captured the attention of the Alpha King. But with every rise comes a shadow, and her wolf whispered of danger, betrayal, and power yet untapped. Seraphine understood deep in her bones that the trials ahead would test not only her strength but her heart, her trust, and the bond between human and wolf. Between Omega and Alpha, the wind carried a faint howl from the distant forest, and Seraphine shivered. It was a call, a warning, and a promise. The world of Lyrathia was awakening to something new, and she was at its center. Her eyes, glowed amber in the moonlight. Her wolf hummed, fierce and ready. And somewhere deep in the citadel, Darius watched, knowing that the game had only just begun. The citadel was never quiet. Not truly. Even in the dead of night, whispers traveled through stone corridors, curling around corners, slipping through cracks in doors. Seraphine had begun to learn this quickly. The court was full of people who smiled politely while hiding knives behind their backs, who whispered lies while bowing low. It was a world of masks and shadows, and she was still learning which to trust. Her wolf, however, did not need lessons. It prowled beneath her skin like a living shadow, alert to danger, sniffing out betrayal before the mind could even understand. Seraphine had learned to listen, to let the instincts guide her, but that night even her wolf sensed something different, a threat too deliberate to be ignored. The Alpha King, Darius, had taken her on a tour of the Citadel's secret chambers that day. She had marveled at the vast libraries, ancient armories, and hidden passages, each filled with echoes of power long forgotten. He had shown her how to trace energy, how to sense the balance of strength and weakness in others. She had trained tirelessly, her wolf rising with each lesson, and yet she knew there were forces even he could not control. "You are improving," Darius had said that morning, his voice calm yet edged with command. "But improvement alone will not save you. You must learn to trust your instincts, and trust is earned, not given. And there are those who will test you, sometimes without warning." Seraphine had nodded, trying to keep her nerves steady, but the words clung to her like a shadow. Tested. By whom? And why? That evening, she walked through the corridors alone, the flickering torchlight casting long, shifting shadows along the walls. She had promised herself she would not give in to fear. Not again. Her wolf hummed, a soft vibration under her skin, alerting her to movement beyond her sight. A figure stepped from the darkness, a courtier she had come to know as Alaric, one of Darius's advisors. "Seraphine," he said, bowing low but with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "The Alpha King has much to do tonight. He will not be able to see you for a while. Perhaps you should rest?" Her wolf growled, low and warning, vibrating against her chest. "No." There is more. Danger. Seraphine's human mind tried to ignore it, but instinct would not be silenced. I think I will walk a little longer," she replied, her voice steady despite the unease crawling along her spine. Alaric's smile faltered slightly. "As you wish, but beware the shadows." Shivers ran down her spine. She stepped forward, feeling the wolf rise inside her, every muscle taut and alert. The corridors seemed darker than usual, the silence heavy with unseen eyes. And then she heard it, the soft hiss of a dagger sliding free from a sheath. Before she could react, a hand shot out, grabbing her shoulder. The wolf surged instantly, and her instincts took over. With a sharp twist, she broke the grip, spinning to face her attacker. It was not Alaric, but a figure masked by the shadows, one of the court's lesser nobles, known for envy and ambition. "You have risen too high for your station, Omega," the voice hissed. "The Alpha King will regret the day he brought you here." Seraphine's wolf surged fully, glowing faintly beneath her skin, filling her with strength and clarity. She did not falter. "I am not weak," she said, her voice steady, eyes glowing amber, "and I will not fall to fear or envy." The noble lunged, dagger flashing in the torchlight, but Seraphine moved with a speed and precision that stunned him. Her wolf guided every motion, every block, every dodge, every strike, until the attacker stumbled, disarmed and terrified. "Do not return," she warned, her voice low, almost a growl. "Or next time, there will be no mercy." The noble scrambled away, disappearing into the shadows. Dan Seraphine's chest heaved, adrenaline surging, but there was no relief. Her wolf hummed, sensing a larger danger, a web of plot stretching through the citadel. She knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, Darius found her in the courtyard, training as the first light of dawn shimmered over the stone fountains. She moved with grace and power, her wolf guiding her strikes and her balance. Yet there was a tension in her movements, a shadow over her eyes. "You faced danger last night," Darius said quietly, approaching. "I sensed it. Your instincts were right." Seraphine nodded. "Someone tried to attack me. A noble. But my wolf, we stopped it." Darius's expression darkened. "The court is restless. There are those who will see your rise as a threat. They will act subtly, poison the mind before the body. You must be careful." "I understand," she said, though her wolf growled softly, restless and impatient. "I want to strike. I want to end the threat." But she hesitated, unsure how much control she should yield to instinct. Darius placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and reassuring. "Your wolf is strong. But strength without guidance can lead to ruin. Trust your instincts, yes, but also trust yourself, and trust that I will stand by you." Seraphine looked into his eyes, and for a moment she saw not the Alpha King, but someone who understood the balance of power and fear, someone who recognized her potential even before she fully trusted it herself. That night, the citadel was alive with intrigue. Seraphine moved cautiously through the halls, her senses sharp, her wolf alert to every whisper and footstep. She discovered a plot she had not anticipated. Alaric the advisor was meeting in secret with other nobles, speaking in hushed tones, their faces masked in shadows. She could hear fragments of their plan. Poison, betrayal, a strike aimed at Darius himself. Her heart pounded. Her wolf surged, furious and protective. But Seraphine forced herself to remain calm. She knew that brute force would only expose her. She had to be clever, to act with strategy, not just power. The wolf whispered of action, of revenge, of the thrill of striking at those who had tried to harm her and the king. But Seraphine took a deep breath, grounding herself in human thought. She would not act recklessly. Not yet. There was a bigger picture, and her survival, and Darius's, depended on patience. The following days were tense. Seraphine trained with Darius, learning not just to fight but to sense danger before it arrived. Her wolf was no longer a silent companion but a guide, pushing her to rise above fear, to master both body and instinct. Yet every corridor, every whispered conversation reminded her that the citadel held shadows waiting to strike. And then a test came she could not ignore. One evening, as Darius inspected the northern towers, Seraphine encountered Alaric alone, attempting to slip past the guards. She acted immediately, her wolf surging, her instincts guiding her every move. She intercepted him, her amber eyes glowing, her presence commanding and fierce. "You will not harm him," she said, her voice low, dangerous. "And if you try again, you will regret it." Alaric sneered. "You think yourself more than you are, Omega. You are nothing without the king's favor. And even he will not protect you forever." Seraphine stepped closer, letting her wolf guide her stance, radiating power and control. "You underestimate me. You will not touch him, and you will not harm this kingdom. Remember that." Alaric froze, seeing the wolf in her eyes, the fire in her heart. Then, with a curse, he vanished into the shadows, leaving Seraphine standing alone, her chest heaving, wolf thrumming beneath her skin. She knew the danger had only grown. The court was not just jealous. It was deadly. And Darius, she had seen in his eyes the trust he placed in her. She could not fail him. Not now. Not ever. That night she dreamt again, visions of fire and chains, of shadows creeping toward the king. Her wolf howled in response, fierce and protective. She woke with a start, heart pounding, knowing that the threats were no longer whispers. They were real, and closer than she had imagined. She rose from her bed, walking to the window of her chamber. The moon hung high over Lyrathia, casting silver light over the citadel and forests beyond. The howl of a wolf echoed in the distance, a reminder of the wild, untamed power that thrummed within her. Her wolf growled softly, a low vibration of readiness. "We must prepare." it seemed to say. The court will strike, and we will not be caught unready. Seraphine nodded, feeling the fire in her chest. She had risen from rejection, from shame, from the arena. She had awakened her wolf, learned to trust its guidance, and gained the attention of the Alpha King. But now, the stakes had grown higher. She understood fully that survival was no longer just a matter of strength. It was a matter of strategy, trust, and courage. And somewhere deep in the citadel, Alaric and the conspirators whispered in the shadows, plotting, scheming, unaware that the Omega they sought to undermine had already begun to rise beyond fear, beyond weakness, and beyond the expectations of all who doubted her. Seraphine's amber eyes gleamed in the moonlight. Her wolf thrummed with power and purpose. She would face the shadows, she would master her strength, and she would protect the Alpha King, no matter the cost. The kingdom of Lyrathia was awakening to a storm, and at its center stood Seraphine, Omega no longer but a force to be reckoned with. The moon hung high over the citadel, a silver sentinel watching over Lyrathia. Its light spilled across stone towers and marble courtyards, illuminating paths that had never felt so dangerous. Seraphine moved silently through the corridors, her wolf thrumming beneath her skin like a heartbeat of steel and fire. Tonight the shadows would strike. She could feel it, sense it, and she was ready. Darius had been tense all day, his sharp eyes scanning the halls, his commands measured yet deliberate. Seraphine had trained relentlessly alongside him, their movements in sync, a dance of human thought and wolf instinct. She had learned not just to fight, but to anticipate, to sense danger before it arrived, and tonight she would put everything to the test. The conspirators, Alaric and the nobles who feared her rise, believed they had planned carefully. Poison had been hidden, traps had been laid, and misinformation had spread throughout the court. But Seraphine's wolf had smelled deceit long before human eyes could see it, and her mind had pieced together the threads. She knew where they would strike, how they would move, and what they hoped to accomplish. She approached the northern tower, where the conspirators had gathered, whispering and plotting, their faces pale in the torchlight. Her wolf surged, coiling strength and courage into every step. She did not hesitate. With a silent roar of determination, she leapt forward, her movements swift and fluid, guided by instincts older than the citadel itself. The nobles froze, shocked at the sudden appearance of the Omega they had so underestimated. Amber eyes glowed with power, and for the first time they saw the full measure of her strength. Not just human, not just wolf, but a perfect merging of both. "You will harm no one," Seraphine said, her voice steady, carrying the weight of authority and warning. "Not the king." "Not this kingdom, and not yourselves." Alaric sneered, but there was uncertainty in his stance now. "You cannot stop what is already set in motion," he hissed. "The king will fall, and then—" Seraphine's wolf surged, and with it came a calm, precise control that made her words sharper than any blade. "You underestimate me. You underestimate what I will protect." A battle was inevitable. Steel flashed, spells of old magic shimmered in the air, and the nobles rushed forward, their ambition giving them courage. But Seraphine moved like a force of nature, every strike precise, every motion guided by wolf instinct and human clarity. She disarmed, redirected, and subdued with skill and grace, leaving no room for injury beyond the warning she intended. The conspirators fled, but not before Seraphine made them understand that their plots would be undone. Their whispers and secrets would be revealed, their ambitions crushed not by cruelty, but by the strength of one who had risen beyond rejection, fear, and doubt. Darius had watched from the shadows, his expression calm but his eyes alight with pride. When the last conspirator had fled, he stepped forward, his cloak flowing behind him, his presence commanding. "You have done well," he said, his voice low but filled with warmth. "Not because you are strong, though you are, but because you have learned to trust yourself and your wolf." Seraphine's chest heaved, sweat and adrenaline mingling, yet she felt a clarity she had never known. I could not have done it without your guidance," she said softly. "Without believing that I could be more than what the world called me." Darius took a step closer, his gaze holding hers. "You are more than what the world calls you," he said, his voice steady, unwavering. You are the wolf, the Omega, and something far greater. Tonight you prove that power is not given, it is claimed, earned, and wielded with courage. Her wolf purred, a soft vibration of approval, while her human heart felt the weight of triumph and relief. She had faced betrayal, she had faced fear, and she had not faltered. And for the first time she understood that survival was not enough. She could rise, she could protect, she could shape her destiny. The night was far from over. Darius led her to the highest tower of the citadel, where the city stretched below like a sea of silver lights. The wind tugged at their cloaks, and the howl of wolves echoed faintly from the forests beyond. It was a quiet, perfect moment, a pause after the storm. You have changed, Darius said, his eyes scanning the horizon but not breaking contact with hers. And the kingdom has changed because of you. Your rise has been seen, and those who doubted you now understand that power is not weakness.
Seraphine felt a surge of both pride and humility.
I was so afraid, she admitted. Afraid of my wolf, afraid of my own strength, afraid that I would fail you, fail myself. Darius stepped closer, his hand brushing lightly against hers. Fear is natural. It is what you do with it that defines you. You did not falter. You embraced both your human heart and your wolf's instinct. That is courage. Her wolf stirred, thrumming with approval, while her human heart leapt. She understood now. Strength was not just in survival, but in trust, in balance, in choosing to rise even when shadows whispered doubts. The dawn approached, painting the sky with shades of gold and rose. Seraphine and Darius stood side by side on the tower, watching the first light touch the kingdom. The citadel had survived the night, the conspirators had been thwarted, and the kingdom remained safe, for now. You have earned more than protection, Darius said, finally turning to her. You have earned respect, and perhaps something more. Seraphine looked into his eyes, and for the first time she saw not just the Alpha King, but a companion, an equal, a force as complex and powerful as her own wolf. She felt the pull of trust, the thrill of connection, and the fire of her own heart. I choose to rise, she said softly, voice steady. Not just for myself, but for this kingdom, and for what we can build together. Darius smiled, a rare, genuine curve of his lips. Then we rise together, he said. Omega and Alpha, Wolf and King. Stronger than any shadow, any betrayal, any doubt. Her wolf purred, a vibration of fierce approval, as if acknowledging the bond, the trust, and the unity between them. Seraphine felt whole, powerful, and free. She had faced the arena, survived the court, mastered her wolf, and now stood at the pinnacle of her journey, ready for whatever the future held. The wind carried a howl from the distant forest, and Seraphine shivered. It was a call, a reminder of the wild, untamed forces that still roamed beyond the citadel walls. But she no longer feared it. Her wolf and her heart were united, and together with Darius, she felt capable of facing any challenge, any danger, any darkness. The kingdom of Lyrathia would remember this night, not for fear, not for blood, but for the rise of an Omega who refused to be rejected, who embraced her power and who chose courage over doubt, instinct over fear, and trust over hesitation. Seraphine turned to Darius, amber eyes glowing softly in the early light. We are ready, she said. Darius nodded, his hand brushing hers once more. Yes, together. The sun broke over the horizon, spilling golden light over the city and the forests beyond. Wolves howled in the distance, a chorus of freedom and strength. The kingdom stirred, alive and awakened, and at its center, two figures stood tall, Alpha and Omega, human and wolf, leaders of a new dawn. And though shadows would always linger, they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, united and transformed. The story of the rejected Omega was no longer one of shame or fear. It was a story of courage, of power awakened, and of redemption earned. The world of Lyrathia would never be the same.